So thank you very much for your kind words. I'm going to sit down if you don't mind. I'm old and fat and cynical, so it's going to be easier for me to do it sitting down. So let's talk about the founder's dilemma and a closely related term, which is founder's syndrome. So the founder's syndrome is, I'm sure you all know, is a situation where the founder or founders are equally important for the initial success of the company, as they are important for the stunt growth or lack of growth or even failure of the startup at the later stage. And the precursor of the founder's syndrome is the founder's dilemma, which is basically a decision what you want to do, what you want to pursue. Do you want to pursue wealth, or do you want to pursue control? Because you really can't do both. So in other words, do you want to be a poor king or a rich peasant? And I'll explain what that means later. Both are totally legitimate. There is no right or wrong or better or worse. It's just up to you and your desire and your motivation why you basically started your business. And the sooner you spend some time introspecting what's more important for you, the better off you're going to be. Because the sad statistic is that 4 out of 5 founder CEOs are forced to step down as CEOs somewhere between the point where they get funding, institutional funding, and the liquidity event. So the transition from the point where you have to step down or you're asked to step down or whatever can be smooth or can be rough. It depends on how you're going to manage the transition. And this is the reason for that is because the people with whom you've set up your company are going to probably side with you, not with the board, when the board asks you to leave. So if you're not honest with them, with your co-founders, your first employees, your first customers, and so on and so forth, it can create a lot of friction, a lot of unpleasant situations. So there's obviously 2 things roughly why you want to go in a business. One is creating wealth, and the other is running an organization. And it depends which one you want. You want to control. For example, Nikola Tesla was all about control. He didn't care about wealth, which is totally cool. He pursued his ambition, his goals, his dreams, and he was very successful. He died in poverty, but that was his decision. The problems as we founders face is that if we are trying to maximize one, we are going to impair the achievement of the other. There's very few founder CEOs out there. Out of 7.5 billion people in the world, there's a handful of people who've managed to do that. Elon Musk's, Bill Gates's, and Jeff Bezos's of the world. And statistically speaking, it's highly likely that none of us in this room qualifies. And it's not the question of your abilities, it's just the fact that your company is scaling faster than your skill set is scaling. So two panels before we were talking about scaling, and we're talking about scaling the product, the market, all of that. But how about scaling your skills? And this is the founder's dilemma. So in my entrepreneurial career, I made a huge amount of decisions that were in total conflict with what you would call a wealth maximization principles. And unfortunately, I'm not alone in that, and many founders do that because they are caught in that founder-CEO loop. And a proof for that fact is that founders as a class, so let's say founders are a social class, we make less or about as much as employees. What is really important is, at least in my personal experience, is that figure out what you want to do early on and pursue that. I didn't. I thought I could do both in both my companies. The first company I started was about making games, and I thought I would be making games, and I didn't. So I had to run the company, and I didn't do a really good job running the company because it was never my passion. So I sucked at CEO and I sucked at game design. So I wish now, Monday morning quarterback, that I would get somebody who would run the company, who would be the CEO, and I would step down as CEO. But I never really thought about this dilemma long after I sold those two companies. So I was the poster child of, not deciding. And the story usually goes for the founder is that you soon realize that your initial money that you get from your kitty or your FFFs or maybe even angels, your ability to inspire the passion and all of that is not going to be enough to take all the possibilities, all the opportunities that lie in front of you and your company. So what you do, you invite outside investors. And by doing so, you have to relinquish some of your control. And the more times you do that, the less control you have, and soon enough you wind up with the board of directors where more than half of them are from outside, and you're on the sidelines of making major decisions. Angels and the FFFs will let you decide whatever you want, but VCs will not. VCs will get outside directors, and they will help you run the company. And the task of the board of directors is super simple. If you suck at CEO, you have to go. It's just as simple as that. And my advice would be that your enterprise should scale faster than your skills. And if it doesn't, shut it down. Try something else or pivot. Because I can speak from my older age perspective. I'm going to be 50 this year. So for me, the only valuable currency right now is time. And I've seen many entrepreneurs spending 10 years trying to hockey stick. Whatever your North Star metric is, you try to do this, you try to do that, you pivot, and it just doesn't fly. And then you try this again, and before you know, it's 20 years. And if you're 35 now, you're going to be 55 when you try two things. And at 55, how many productive years as an entrepreneur you're going to get, because you're looking at the heart attack, you're looking at the chronic diseases, you're looking at depression and all of that kind of good stuff that comes with being an entrepreneur. So the bottom line is, if it doesn't scale, shut it down. Paradoxically, the more successful you are as an entrepreneur, the quicker you will have to relinquish your CEO position. And the reason is simple, because again, your your ability to scale your skills is going to be slower than the scaling of the company. Because success makes founders less qualified to lead the company. It's a sad fact. And old boy Winston here, he lost general election just a couple of months after winning World War II for Britain. So if it happened to him, it can happen to anybody. But from the founder's perspective, things are looking completely different. You know, you're successful. You've created first revenue. Maybe you have even achieved recurring revenue. You have first clients, and they are happy with you. So the board, from your point of view, the investors should have no cause for complaint, and should, in your view again, should continue supporting you as in the role of the CEO. But the board doesn't look what's going on now. This is a situation which is very familiar to us entrepreneurs. We are stuck in the moment of now. We are firefighting. We are doing all of that. But the board is looking ahead. The board is looking 5-6 months from now. So if you're growing super fast, it means that in 6 months you won't be able to run the company anymore because it's going to be too big for you, and you're going to be replaced, which is a good thing. Again, you know, it's the dilemma you have to decide. Because what you have to do now is basically build a proper company, and that's not easy. In my limited experience, building a startup is much easier than building a scale-up. Scale-ups include things that we dynamic people don't really like. A lot of structure, a lot of processes, a lot of managerial hierarchy, specific roles, HR, you know, all of that BS that we really don't want because it's slowing us down. So if you imagine yourself like 5,000 years ago, in the world which was much simpler, you could do all of these things probably. You can home repair, it's just a wooden shed, easy, no big deal. Paint, just a little bit of mud and blood probably from a dead cow. Brain surgery, you know, you open the skull to relieve the pressure, done. Dentistry, you ask the guy which tooth aches, chuck it out, you're done. Accounting, you're counting beans, literally bean counting, and so on. But today, in this complex world, you maybe can do one. And your startup was like that in the beginning. It was super simple. Few clients, few employees, few problems, and then when you scale, you have to decide what you're going to be best at. Because you need to be best at one or two things, because the other guy is best at one or two things. You can't be Michelangelo. It's just not possible anymore. So the founders are usually convinced that they're the only ones who can really take the company to success. And again, this is a very emotional thing, because we built our company according to our vision. We hired people who are compatible with us. Our vision and mission is really aligned with our Weltanschauung, and so on and so forth. Our clients, we know them by first name basis, and so on. And all of these people are associating our venture with us personally. And now it's really difficult for us to say, I'm going to give up my baby for adoption. And Noah Wasserman, who talked to 10,000 founders, found that we talk about our ventures in parenting terms, in anthropomorphic terms. We are super emotionally attached to our companies. And that's dangerous because from the moment when you get VC money, it's no longer your baby. Your job is it's a product. Your company is a product. You have to package it, put a bow on it, sell it as quick as possible for as much money as you can. So emotions and emotional attachment can be dangerous. This guy here is Pygmalion. Again, from history, he was a Greek sculptor, and he created a sculpture that was so beautiful he fell in love with it. And this being Greece and all that, and blah blah blah. There was a bunch of very unfortunate events that happened to him because of that. The evidence for our emotional attachment is very obvious. 51% of entrepreneurs make the same or less amount of money as people reporting to them directly. And that is even so taking into account the value of the equity they own. So, in conclusion, this is by no means an easy question, an easy dilemma, but you have, in my opinion, it is really helpful if you take some time, if you haven't already time for introspection, and ask yourself what is your motivation? Do you want to be in control? I think Mr. Royce of Rolls-Royce said, I would much rather be in total control of an underfunded and understaffed R&D department than a wealthy and overstaffed department where I have just a lateral role in it. So it's not an easy question, it's not an easy dilemma, but it's going to help you scale your company much better. Thank you.
Boštjan, thank you. I'm extremely curious which answers we got in our survey. Let's have a look. And Boštjan, would you care to comment? So, would you be willing to step down as a CEO? Okay. Wow. So what does
that's
that
very
tell
good.
us?
That's super cool, reassuring.
Is that the answer that we wanted?
Yes. That's if I would see this 15 years ago, or
Okay.
when I was not aware of this dilemma and somebody would show this to me, I would be super happy. Because I would get somebody who would be a better CEO, a much better CEO than I was.
Okay, but I'm reminded of what Guillaume said in the debate, This is just a theoretical question. We'll see what we do in practice and real life.
Yeah.
Thank you, Boštjan.
You're welcome.